Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 375 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our third book is called From Letters to Leaders, Leveraging Your Fraternity or Sorority Experience to Land Your Dream Job. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, East Carolina University is one of my favorite places to go and speak. They have this huge ballroom on campus for speakers to use, and the fraternity and sorority community, they come out in droves to go and improve their community. Thousands will show up. They're all going to be engaged. And today, I wanted to spotlight one of the undergraduate leaders at East Carolina University to try and figure out what is this special sauce that they have there on campus and what makes each of the students so engaged. Greg Sharafinsky is working to develop a strong understanding of leading people from different backgrounds and managing complex tasks. Through his various roles, such as the current president of Chi Phi Fraternity at East Carolina University, he has expanded his abilities to collaborate with others, inspire and motivate teams, and efficiently manage resources. His pursuit of learning provides him with a unique perspective and a skill set that would certainly be an asset to any team or organization. So if you're looking to hire a finance major, this is your guy. He is going places. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thank you, Michael.
It is great to be with you today. I love doing a occasional undergraduate spotlight because I don't want to lose sight of the undergraduates. Yes, there are tons of alumni out there that have built huge careers, have lots of resources to help, et cetera, speakers, you name it. But on this show, I want to make sure that the undergraduate voice is heard because ultimately you're the one who is leading this fraternity and sorority movement. I mean, I had my time as an undergraduate, as a president of my local chapter, but my time is over. Now I can just give you the resources to go out and execute. So I think your voice, the undergraduate voice, is incredibly important, not only to Chi Phi, but for the entire fraternity and sorority movement.
Thank you. Yeah. And my board of directors job that we'll dive into later, that's exactly what I'm doing there. So I'll give you a little more detail on that.
Yeah, that is super exciting. I can't wait to talk about that because that is very unusual and that is something we have to talk about. But let's talk about just East Carolina University generally. You're there as a finance major, and I'm wondering, why was ECU your choice?
That's a great question. So I grew up in Chicago, and my sister skipped 2 years in high school. She's a genius. We were going into college at the same time, and we both knew we wanted North Carolina schools. During COVID, we moved down here. We get in-state tuition, which was phenomenal. And once we were down here, I was looking at the 4 big North Carolina schools. When I visited each one, I didn't find a community like ECU. It's a gorgeous campus, and it checked all my boxes. So I decided on ECU.
I love it. I love that you were prepared. You went to go and do the visits. See, these are all things I did not do as an undergraduate, and I regret not taking more time to go and actually visit because you really can't get a feel for a campus online. I mean, you can look at the pictures, but that's not at all like what you're looking for. You got to walk the campus. You got to talk to the students. You got to talk to the professors. Take the time to make a good decision.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so you joined Chi Phi Fraternity there, and we know about the large fraternity and sorority presence on campus. So what made you want to join Chi Phi over some of the other organizations?
Good question. So out of our 19 fraternities here, when I was rushing, I had a little bit of a closed mind. So I only really looked at 2 fraternities. From those 2, side note, I regret that. I should have looked at 15 fraternities. But I'm very happy where I ended up. When I went to Chi Phi for their rush events, I just clicked with the guys. The conversation went easy, whereas in other fraternities it felt forced. So I was really happy. Everything just seemed to fit right.
Yeah, I really believe that there's a fraternity out there for every person on campus, or sorority for that matter, at East Carolina University. I mean, I just think go and check it out, go and see as many as you can, go and talk to people who are in these organizations to try to figure out where you're a good fit. But there's a home for everybody out there. There's no question in my mind. Of course, I'm a little bit biased. I would have loved for you to choose Sigma Pi, but Chi Phi is a great organization too. So that's okay.
Yeah. Sig Pi was the other one I looked at.
Nice, nice. Well,
Yeah,
I'm happy to
they're
hear
great.
that. That
Yeah,
makes me happy. So you start
absolutely.
out as a philanthropy chairman, and you raised over $15,000 during your tenure as philanthropy chairman. So tell our audience, what is the secret to raising so much money?
Yeah. So when I came in, we were doing the most basic things you could think of, canned food drives, nothing really, everything that fit inside the box. So I came in and I said, we aren't getting the results we want. How do we do better? I started thinking a little bit outside the box. I knew one thing that I really wanted to do. I wanted to joint up with sororities to get the brothers engaged. That motivates them a lot.
Right.
So we did, I believe, 3 or 4 philanthropies with different sororities that drove engagement in our brotherhood, and we saw better results from that. Also, I organized an event at a local venue where we had some DJs come in, some big name DJs play at this venue. Our fraternity kind of organized and middlemanned it, and then we got a cut of ticket sales to donate back to our philanthropy, which is the Boys and Girls Club of America.
That's absolutely amazing. First of all, you're pairing off with sororities. So important. If you want fraternity men to show up, just do the event with the sorority. It's very
Yeah,
simple. I
yeah,
mean, it's about as obvious as can be. But for some reason, I don't know why organizations just do things on their own, and I'm like, why? Like
yeah,
we all have to do this kind of philanthropy work. And if you know that more people are going to show up when you do it with a sorority, then go ahead and do that. I mean, whatever it
absolutely.
takes to get people to show up.
Yeah,
So I love that. And then, I mean, anytime you're doing something social, people are going to show up at East Carolina University. So I think,
yeah.
keying in on the type of event, knowing the types of students and what they're looking to do, that certainly helps out as well. So kudos to you for raising so much money.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
awesome. And of course, then now you're managing this budget of over $100,000 as chapter treasurer. And I think that's really important. I mean, I love how you talk about that on your resume, on LinkedIn, because, managing a big budget like that, not every student at East Carolina University gets to do that. So, for me as a CEO, when I see that on your resume or when I see that on LinkedIn, I'm like, okay, this guy knows how to manage serious money, like a six-figure budget. But how did you deal with the brothers who were not paying their bills on time?
Yeah. So that was a two-sided approach. In the past, what we've done was if you don't pay bills, you get punished in XYZ way. Although that is somewhat effective, I thought a more effective way, which I actually learned from your TikToks, is to incentivize paying the bills. Um, so I created an incentive program. The biggest part of that was if you pay off your whole semester's dues before the start of the semester, you're entered in a raffle to win like a free room at a formal or a couple other little prizes. I know a lot of fraternities will say if you pay off all your dues before the start of the semester, you get $50 off your dues or something like that.
Mhm.
This raffle was less expensive for us and it was way more fun. The thought of winning a $300, $400 prize is way more fun than $50 off.
Wow,
And then
that's just amazing.
on the flip side, any brothers who owed a significant amount, 2 or 3 semesters worth, I would publicly call them out. I'd be like, hey, in our group chat, this person owes $2,000. He's holding us all back right now because we can't do the things we should be able to do.
Oof. Wow, putting them on blast in front of his
Yeah.
brothers.
Yeah.
Well,
We're a
listen,
brotherhood. We're a brotherhood. We hold each other accountable. So it actually works pretty well.
that's amazing. I mean, this is like a perfect case study in showing what good accountability looks like. Using incentives is huge, and just leveraging the competitiveness of fraternity men. They all want to win. So how do
Yeah.
we capture that and use that to our advantage? And you figured out how to do it. The fact that you learned it from a TikTok of mine, that's even better. I'm happy that somebody's out there watching it, but you're absolutely right. That kind of incentive and that kind of accountability, that works so much better than, let's say fines or something like that. I mean, people don't even pay attention to that kind of stuff. I think it just creates all kinds of animosity in the
Yeah.
brotherhood when you start doing those kinds of things like fines. But we love to do it in fraternity and sorority life, and it doesn't even make any sense because it doesn't work. And so I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what my message is. If something isn't working, then just stop doing it and try something else.
Yeah.
And it's just all too often we just continue to do the same things that we've done last semester or last year because that's the way that we've always done it. And that kind of conversation, that kind of talk is just awful because we end up in this like cycle that just keeps repeating itself and we never
Yeah.
actually get the results we want.
To your point about fines, in my tenure as treasurer,
Mhm.
I gave out one fine to myself. Beyond that, I gave out zero fines. And as a result of that, I tout the highest collections rate, which was a little over 90% of any treasurer in recent memory.
Wow. I mean, that just tells you volumes in terms of, chapter treasurers. Listen to what Greg is telling you because there is a more effective way out there to get your job done. And he's showing you the blueprint on how to get it done. So that's absolutely fantastic. Now you're chapter president. Tell our audience what is the most difficult part of being chapter president?
You know, this is a phenomenal question because it's not an easy job. It looks glamorous, but it's not. For me, the hardest part, I have to be the mean guy in a lot of situations, which I hate to do. I really hate to do it. Um, Whether we're J-boarding someone, I have to call them to the J-board. I have to, break the bad news when they get a punishment. I'm the speaking person for that. Or even just the other day, we had a Rust chair who's lacking on his job right now, so I had to call a vote to remove him. That has to happen because you need these results. But I have to be the one to I'm the bearer of the bad news, even though a lot of people were on board with it.
Yeah. I mean, see, that's really difficult. I mean, people are going to be listening to that and they're going to be like, "Wow, you're voting to get rid of somebody." That's really hard, especially if that's like your pledge brother or something like that. That's really hard to do. And the fact that you're able to do those kinds of things in your brotherhood, I think speaks volumes. Because that's the key is having that kind of accountability. That's the key to great results. Healthy chapters can do those types of things that you're talking about. If it's unhealthy, then suddenly the national office of Chi Phi or John Mounts from the university has to get involved and do that kind of work. That's unhealthy if somebody from the outside has to do that work. Your own brotherhood should be able to manage those things by itself. And if you have a functioning judicial board, then you can manage all of that and do those kinds of things. And I would even say that the exec board, somebody like you as chapter president, really shouldn't even be getting involved in membership issues. I think that could all be handled by the judicial board. Let them do all of that work. And then that way, essentially, your hands are clean. You're basically just doing your job as president, making sure that all the systems are working. But ultimately, your brothers are being judged by their peers on the judicial board, and the exec board is essentially my hands are clean. I'm not involved in that process.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely.
So, I mean, I think that's great that you have that kind of accountability. And you're absolutely right. I mean, the job, I did that job as chapter president. It looks very glamorous. It looks very sexy. Like, I totally get that. But the reality is that it's a lot of work. And sometimes you have to make unpopular choices as chapter president. And I think that's the most difficult part because you and I are both wired in such a way that we want to be well liked in the fraternity, both of us. And if you have to make unpopular decisions, that kind of goes against the way that you're wired.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough
It's
sometimes.
it is tough, but you know what? You're looking out for the organization. I think certainly Chi Phi is better off because you're there. So that's wonderful, and you're doing the right thing by the organization. Now, you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier because you're on the national board of directors for Chi Phi National Fraternity, which is actually a job that not every national fraternity offers to undergraduates. So, what are your responsibilities there on the board of directors?
Yeah. So the board is comprised of 8 voting members. and then supporting staff from the national office. Out of the 8 voting members, 2 of them at any given time are undergraduate students. I was lucky enough to be nominated by the president of the board to fill that position for the next 2 years. My responsibilities are really to share the voice of the undergraduates at the national level in the fraternity. So we have quarterly board meetings. We go in and we discuss all of these future plans, what's going on. My job is to give them the insight of the undergraduate students right now.
I love that. I think that's an absolutely phenomenal idea. It's something that I certainly considered when I was executive director of the National Fraternity. We got some pushback really from the insurance carrier, because there is some liability that goes along with that, having an undergraduate on the national board. God forbid, and hopefully this never happens, of course, but God forbid that suddenly something happens at the chapter level and now you're actually a representative of the board. That could be a potentially a liability issue. And so sometimes insurance companies look at that and they're like, I'm not so sure if we're comfortable with that. But all of that being said, it's the most phenomenal idea that I've ever heard, because I do believe that a lot of the national boards of national fraternities and sororities, sometimes, times change. And I think ultimately, if I was an undergraduate 30 years ago, 40 years ago, things are very different today at East Carolina University. Just look at the demographics of the students that go to ECU. It's very different today than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. And so I do think having your finger on the pulse of the undergraduates, that is super important for making good decisions. And so I think you're
Absolutely.
able to do that.
Yeah. It's a fantastic thing. And it also it just gives great leadership opportunities to these undergrad kids. Even though it's only 2 people in any given 2-year period, that's an opportunity, like you said, that not a lot of fraternities offer.
Yeah, that's huge. Definitely talk that up on any interviews that you're on, because I think being on the board of directors of a huge nonprofit with as many, chapters and undergraduate students as Chi Phi has, that's huge. And so I would definitely talk about that a lot. And speaking of jobs, I mean, you already are doing a ton of work. You're a DJ at a nightclub. You had a pressure washing business. You do commercial real estate today. I mean, your hustle is just incredible. I mean, I respect the hustle. What keeps you motivated to work all of these jobs? And talk to our audience about how these experiences have made you better.
Yeah. There are really 2 things that keep me motivated. Number one, obviously making money. I love fancy stuff. Guilty of that. Number 2, like you said in my intro, I really just love learning all these different things. So those are 3 completely different jobs you alluded to. I love learning as much as I can about different things. And then I know right now I don't know what I want to do, but as I practice all these different segments and niches, I'm hoping eventually I'll find out which one I really click with and where I'm going to end up for my whole career. The second part was, how do these experiences better you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, hand in hand, it's just learning. The goal is to learn as many industries as I can, and then eventually make a choice for what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I love that you have these hustles. I love that, you have your own businesses that you can decide to continue and grow or sell off or just discontinue, whatever you decide. But I love that, because you're absolutely right. You just really never know like what is going to happen and how things are going to grow. Years ago in a former life, I was doing website design and search engine optimization. And, I was doing it at night and on the weekends. And all of a sudden, I went to the mailbox and I got like literally just a ton of checks, a ton of cash. And I pulled it out of the mailbox. I opened up all the envelopes, had all these checks, and I showed it to my wife. I'm like, look at this. And she was like, you got to be kidding me. And I was like, I'm telling you, I was like, I'm making more at night and on the weekends than I am during my day job as CFO in Manhattan. Okay. And so that was kind of the moment that we knew that it was time to shift gears and just become an entrepreneur full time. And I think the same thing is going to be true for you. I think as you continue to grow these businesses, you're eventually going to realize, which one is making money, which one has the most potential. And then that turns into something huge after graduation. So kudos to you for building your own businesses and trying out all of these things, because I do think that you're going to be ultra successful. One day we'll look back at this interview and we'll be like, man, this is where he started, and look at him now. Like, he's managing this huge company. So kudos to you, man. You're doing all the right
Thank you.
things.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And, I also think we should talk about nutrition too. I think, it's really tough to eat right in college because I know at East Carolina, I mean, you have tons of fast food available like all over the place. So, how do you eat right in college?
Yeah. So when I first moved into the house after I was done in the dorms, I realized that I would I would go eat fast food way too much.
Mhm.
So I thought about why. I did it because I was either in a rush or I didn't feel like cooking. Um, to solve those issues, at the beginning of every week, I'll go buy a couple pounds of chicken. I'll
Mhm.
bake it all at once, so it takes me 30 minutes. I'll cut it up and I'll throw it in a Tupperware in the fridge. Then throughout the week, I'll make tacos. I'll make like buffalo chicken wraps. I'll just reheat that chicken that's already cooked so I can make a meal in 2 minutes. That saves me a bunch of time and it solves those issues of feeling lazy, not wanting to cook, or just being in a rush.
I love your mindset. You're the perfect entrepreneur because you look at problems and then you dissect it to figure out, okay, why is this a problem for me? And then you fix it and you address the issue. Your mindset, just I can see the way that your brain works, and it's exactly what you want from an entrepreneur. It's exactly what you want. And you solved it and you did it. So man, I'm blown away. I think that is just incredible. And I think our listeners are thinking the same thing. Um, Talk to us about time management because you're doing all of these things in college. You're also staying fit. I see that you're in very good shape. So how do you balance everything that you've got going on?
This is tough. One thing that I do, which I absolutely hate, I do it. I take 9 a.m. classes every semester. It really sucks, but it forces me to stay on a schedule where I have to be in bed by 11 or 12 o'clock. I can't be out partying all night. And then I get my day started early. My classes are usually done by noon. And then I have the whole afternoon to go work, do homework, attend to fraternity matters. So really keeping that forced schedule, I can't miss more than 1 or 2 classes or else I'm going to be done for. Keeping that forced schedule is my key to time management.
Wow, that is fantastic. It's great that you're motivated and you stay within that schedule. I think other students, they might sign up for a 9 o'clock class, but then they wake up at like 10 or 11, and then it's
Yeah.
like, then they're done
Yeah.
for. I mean, their grades are just atrocious. So, I mean, good for you for sticking to it. I think that's amazing. And you know yourself best. I think you know that you need to get an early start to your day so that way you don't waste it away sleeping or just, being unmotivated. So, I think that's the key is know yourself, know like when you learn, know your cycles. And so, if you know that you need to wake up early and get your day started, then go ahead and commit to it. And you're going to be successful. And clearly that's happening for you. So good for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's really good. All right. So since we're talking about food, I do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. And I love speaking at ECU. My boy, John Mounts, he is absolutely the man. So, we went out for dinner after the last time I was there speaking on campus. But I want to hear from you from a student. Where should I go for a great meal the next time I'm speaking on campus?
Absolutely. Where'd you go, if I may ask?
Oh man, we went to this bar that's close to campus. They had really good food. They had good drinks. I'm trying to remember for the life of me. I remember what it looks like inside. It was pretty dark, but the food was really good. I got to go back and talk to John and ask him
Yeah,
which place he took me
absolutely.
to.
There are a lot of restaurants like that. I'll give you 3 recommendations.
All right.
On the top end, my favorite place, a little more pricey. It's a high-end Italian place called Nino's.
Okay.
Really, really good Italian food. When my parents come into town, that's where we'll go. Um, on the more middle end, there's this little Tex-Mex place called Sidebar. Really
Uh-huh.
good Tex-Mex, good drinks. If Mexican food is your favorite, that's a good spot. And then if you just want a burger and beer, I love Christie's Euro Pub.
Mhm.
It's right in the middle of a bunch of student housing, so you get a lot of like fun characters there, but it's a great burger, lots of beer selection. Yeah, just a really good spot.
Very nice. Well, those are three excellent choices. So now I'm going to have to figure out where I'm going to go. It's going to be difficult to choose between the three. Maybe I'll hit all three. Who knows?
Maybe.
All right, man. Well, this has been a lot of fun. So, all right. So, if our listeners, if they want to connect with you on social media, maybe get your advice because they're on exec board and they don't really know what to do, maybe they're chapter treasurer, they need some advice. Where can they go to connect with you and just ask you questions?
Yeah. So Instagram or LinkedIn. My Instagram is Gregging, Greging. And then my LinkedIn is, of course, my name, Greg Sharafinsky. Um, yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, now all of our listeners know where to go and get you at Gregging on Instagram, or just check him out on LinkedIn, Greg Sharafinsky. He spells his last name Sharafinski. Go and check him out there. This guy is going places. I'm telling you right now, we are all going to look back at this interview 10 years from now and be like, this guy just absolutely did amazing things in his life and his career. So all I can say is I'm proud of you, Greg. Keep up the great work. We appreciate it.
Michael, thank you for all the compliments and thanks for having me on your show.
Of course, my pleasure. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this talk with Greg, make sure that you like it on social media. Make sure that you share it on social media. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.